This is Attorney Matt Wallin, partner at the law office of Wallin and Klarich. The following video will examine a vehicle stop and subsequent field sobriety test performance to give advice on what someone should and should not do when stopped on suspicion of DUI. Enjoy.
You know why you were stopped this evening?
No.
Okay, I watched your vehicle drift from side to side, crossing the lines 3 different times. Okay? You're in the number 2 lane. You drifted into the number 1 lane 3 different times. And I watched you straddle the line twice.
Okay.
Okay? Now, talking with you, I can smell the alcohol. How much alcohol have you had tonight? You haven't had anything?
This officer leads with this question, how much alcohol have you had tonight? Is that a normal question for police to lead with when they're pulling someone over?
Absolutely. That and do you know why I pulled you over are the 2 most common ways for an officer to lead these encounters. You'll see that this officer, according to his training, is leading with alcohol consumption, and normally drivers are caught off guard with that question and normally will respond quickly, not knowing whether or not they have to respond and what their rights are.
Who's been drinking then?
I did.
How much alcohol have you had tonight?
Pretty good.
Okay? So if I get you out, I'm not going to find any alcohol in your system. Sir?
No.
Seem real hesitant.
No, you're not.
Pardon?
You're not.
Okay. All right. I'll be back with you in just a moment.
Can I see the video, please?
You'll have to wait until later. Go ahead and keep your hands out of your pockets for me.
No, I'd like to see the video first.
You're not going to see the video.
Okay.
It's in my car and it's recording this.
He has too much talking. Anytime you're opening your mouth in front of an officer, not only is the officer going to write down the odor of alcohol emitting from your breath, he's also going to use whatever you say against you. As you see in all the TV shows, what you say can and will be used against you, not for you. So conversing with the officer, speaking about the latest basketball game or what video he has or doesn't have is simply not going to serve you in your case at all.
So how much alcohol have you had? Are you still going to stay with none?
No, I've had like 2 beers.
Okay. Well, you lied. You said none in the vehicle.
Okay, so the video at this point skips ahead to the field sobriety tests. Matt, can you tell me a little bit about, in general, what these tests are?
Sure, I think more appropriately these tests should be called exercises. To call them tests might be giving them a little bit too much credit in terms of their reliability. These tests have been standardized by National Highway Traffic and Safety, NHTSA, and only a few of these exams or tests are actually standardized by the federal government in terms of their reliability. The main issue with these tests is, number one, first and foremost, that they're voluntary. You'll notice if you watch enough of these encounters, you handle enough of these cases, they're not required by law to tell you they're voluntary.
Smell the alcohol out there. Smell the alcohol here. Okay? Go ahead and put your hands to your side and your feet together. I'm going to run you through some tests to see if you're safe to operate your vehicle.
You'll see how the officer just jumps right into the test, telling him to put his hands at his side. Again, you don't see anywhere any acknowledgement about the test being voluntary, giving him an option, doing much, but just leading right into the test. In addition, you'll see him coaching it or approaching it by saying, we have to run through these tests to see if you're safe to drive. This video is consistent with most of the videos I review. They just jump right into the test. Unless you're a criminal defense attorney practicing DUI, you're not going to know that you have the right not to take these tests.
Okay, first off, do me a favor. Remove your hat. You can either hold it or we can put it back inside your vehicle.
So Matt, what is this test that he's having him do here?
His first test is called the HGN, or Horizontal Gaze Nystagmus test. One of the most common field sobriety tests. One of the 3 standardized tests. This HGN test is really testing to see whether or not they can detect the involuntary jerking of the eyes.
So he's not checking this guy to see how well he can follow a pen. He's watching this guy's eye to see if it's doing something involuntary.
Absolutely. Something that you couldn't train yourself to do or not to do. The problem is there's often many innocent explanations unrelated to alcohol that causes HGN or nystagmus. Caffeine, for example, Advil. Things that are, of course, not in of itself illegal. Fatigue. All these things can cause symptoms that appear to be due to alcohol and cause HGN but have no relation whatsoever at all to alcohol consumption or impairment.
Is this a complicated test for the officer to perform?
Absolutely. Not only is it complicated, this test, the HGN in particular, really has 25 distinct different steps that must be performed. In addition, the officer must perform these tests exactly as prescribed. It doesn't give the officer any freelancing ability to freestyle and do the test as he sees fit. There are specific rules about where the stimulus is to be held, how the passes from side to side are supposed to go and for how long, and if not done properly, any results are just unreliable. It's that simple.
Matt, how often would you say you're able to find something that the officer did wrong in the process of administering this test?
Almost every single time. If given the opportunity to review the video and the audio, almost always, if you have the manual in front of you, you can attack aggressively many failures that the officer does in terms of how he administers the test. And administration of these tests is so important because believe that the results or, quote, poor performance is going to be used against my clients. So in order for me to combat that, I need to focus and attack on how the test was administered, whether or not the environment the test was conducted in is conducive to the test. For example, if there's lights from other cars passing by or the officer's vehicle lights, patrol lights shining, these are perfect and innocent explanations for certain poor performances that are noted in police reports. But the officers will fail to include these other reasons that are very, very significant as to why someone may have performed the way they did.
Negative VGN.
This next test is called the walk and turn test. It's one of the tests that most people are familiar with. They've seen it on TV, and for that reason, jurors oftentimes think, well, it must be an easy test, pretty straightforward. In reality, it's a very, very complex test, very, very difficult to complete properly, whether or not you're sober or not. Michael Jordan, on a good day sober, would have difficulty performing to a T on this test. It's very, very difficult to perform well. In addition, oftentimes the officer does not give the proper admonishment in terms of how to perform the test, which makes it practically impossible to perform well.
And keep your hands to your side. Okay. Do not move from this position until I tell you to begin this test.
So this gentleman, before he's given all the instructions, he's already standing like he's supposed to, and then he falls a little to the side. Does that count against him as part of the test, even though he hasn't started walking yet?
Most definitely, yes. The complicated part about these tests is you're being graded on things that you're not being told about. The grading starts before you think you're performing. So imagine walking into an exam, taking a Scantron, and the Scantron gets handed out, you bubble in all the right answers, and then you get your score back and you fail. And you ask the teacher, why did I fail? Well, as you were waiting for your tests, you weren't sitting up straight. You didn't know you were being graded on that. So part of the reason I tell my clients not to perform these tests is it's hard to do well on an exam or a test where you're not given the criteria for which you're going to be judged on. For example, on this walk and turn test, as you're standing there, you're being judged in terms of your performance. So if your hands are not where they're supposed to be, if you're not standing the way you're supposed to be, that's held against you. And oftentimes, the scoring systems don't account for the natural human characteristics of how people would naturally stand and or balance.
Okay. All right.
This third test is the one leg stand. It's another one of the standardized tests, which requires an individual to stand on one leg with the other leg extended out in front of them, approximately 6 inches above the ground. The suspect is then told to keep that foot elevated and count aloud 1 1,000, 2 1,000, etc. until told to stop.
And can you tell me a little bit about how this test is scored? What is the officer looking for?
There's several different cues this officer is looking for. There's 4 primary clues in this test. One of them is swaying while trying to balance, using one's arms to balance, hopping or putting your foot down. Those are the 4 clues or cues of impairment that officer is trained to look for. Obviously, it's important that the test be performed in a proper location that's reasonably dry, level, and hard surface. And as an attorney, it's our job to critically analyze and attack not just the way the test was instructed or performed, but where and how it was performed. In terms of the clues of impairment, you have to take it a step further. When you're looking at the performance, it's not as simple as saying that, well, clearly he was swaying or clearly he was using his arms. when you look at the manuals, in order for it to count as a clue or a cue, the bottom line is it has to be to a certain level. So, for example, the arms, you're allowed to use your arms to balance to a certain degree, but if it's more than 6 inches, only then, if and only then, if that occurs, is it considered a clue. So you'll see officers trying to cut corners in these reports and writing really quickly, use arms to balance. And then when I get the videos through discovery, I see, yeah, they're right. They did use their arms to balance, but not in a manner which would allow them to count that against my client. So it's important that the attack be that vigorous if you're trying to win these cases. No surprise here, this individual gets arrested. Let's talk about the steps the officer took and what could have been done differently. Number one, he should not have answered any questions. I don't mean to say that he should have lied. He should have just simply, politely told the officer he's not going to answer any questions. I don't know whether or not this individual actually drank alcohol or not. What I do know is him admitting to drinking 2 drinks was not the right decision. In addition, he should not have performed those field sobriety exercises, knowing now what we know in terms of the very, very difficult nature of these tests, the way that they are administered, and how difficult they are. So, in terms of protecting his own interests, he should not have answered questions, continue to ramble about watching the video, and he should not have performed the physical field sobriety test.
Spread your feet wide. Wider.
This is attorney Matt Wallin, partner at Wallin and Klarich. If you enjoyed this video, please take the time and subscribe to our YouTube channel. In addition, if you're interested in a free legal protection plan, which provides 24/7 emergency legal assistance just in case you're arrested, in addition, 3 hours of free phone consultation per year, please visit our website at wklaw.com/LPP. Thank you.